Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Dr. Corey Glenn, and I'm going to be sharing a case today where we did lower implants and then used the Grammee photogrammetry scanner to go ahead and capture the verified implant positions and do a digital workflow for making her prototype restorations. So this was actually pretty cool. This is a patient I have a long history with, going back to 2015. This was one of my own patients. And, at the time she presented like this, had a lower partial. And so it was one of the early on full arch guided surgeries that I ever did. And so we actually generated surgical guides. In fact, the surgery is on my YouTube. If you go way, way back, probably around 2015, you can watch this surgery. But soft tissue supported guide. And, thankfully she had a lot of bone, and we were able to place 5 implants in the premaxilla. And here you can see the pre-op plan positions versus the post-op positions. So everything went really accurately, had a great result, and ended up restoring her with one of the Smart One composite hybrids that Burbank Dental Lab does. This is a chrome cobalt bar that goes direct to the multi, and then all of the white you see there is milled crystal ultra composite. It's just monolithic, and then you stack the gingival composite on top of that. So this is one of my favorite methods to restore a hybrid because you've got a lot of advantages. You can't break these things through and through because of that heavy duty bar, but you get the softer and lighter composite uh, against the occlusion, so it's not beating up the opposing, it's not so heavy, and then two, it is composite, so if something breaks, chips, you simply put on the bonding agent and fix it, or even if you have to retread it completely, it's a relatively inexpensive fix. And so this was one of my favorite ways to restore these cases, and here you could see the final result. Looked great, blended right into her mouth. And so let's jump forward now about 9 years. Many of you might not know, but I've no longer clinically practiced. I had to retire due to some back issues following having leukemia. And so the doctor that purchased my practice was Dr. Daniel Cosby. So she's still a patient in the practice, and slowly kind of lost multiple of those teeth on the bottom, and eventually was left with just three. And she loved her upper. It was still trucking along just fine after 9 years, and so she wanted to do something similar on the bottom. And so I was more than happy to jump in and help with planning, and even made the final restoration because, again, I love this patient, and it's cool for me to get some continuity since I don't actually clinically practice anymore. And so what we did is a dual scan with a prototype denture that allowed to sit over those three existing teeth. We scanned her with that in place, and we're able to then plan our implants backwards from that position. Here was the planned positions, and you can again see that Smart One composite hybrid on the top. There's the bar. This is the composite superstructure. But again, lots of bone. That's never the issue with this patient. She's got beautiful bone, and so the plan was to place 6 implants, a couple of them distal to the foramina, get the best AP spread that we can, and this was the plan against the opposing. And so what I did is I made stackable guides, and this is a relatively simple reduction guide. She needed about 4 to 5 millimeters of bone reduction to create prosthetic space. So I made this bone reduction guide, and this is kind of cool in that you don't need to do initial pins and all that kind of stuff because you simply flat back, and because it extends over the top of the ridge and around on the lingual, and because I made this little strut in the middle, it has a positive seat on the mandible. So you simply have to reflect enough, which is not all that much. This was a metal printed guide, so the dimensions are super thin. Didn't have to extend far down on the lingual. And so Dr. Cosby did the surgery. I don't have pictures from the surgery, unfortunately, but he did an excellent job with it. Just reflected back, seated this on the mandible, and then reduced bone down to this level. Okay. And the little area right here where that strut is sitting, you would just leave unreduced until after the implants are all placed. Then you take it off, and you've just got one little area to even up. And so this was the bone reduction guide. Once that bone has been reduced, it's going to look something like this. and then I made a stackable drill guide for the Blue Sky Bio fully guided keyless kit. And Daniel placed 6 Biomax implants ranging from 4.3 by 10 up to 4.3 by 11. So lots of titanium, lots of good fixation in the mouth. We did not immediate load this, chose to just let him integrate. She had been going without teeth, so no reason to push it. And so this was on the day of Uncovery. So the original scan appliance denture, we were able to superimpose on her post-op CT scan so that we could see where the implants are emerging. And I made some holes in that denture to use as an uncovery guide. That way he could put the denture in and just mark with an indelible ink stick where those implants were and do a pretty atraumatic uncovery. And so here's the Uncovery, and at the time I had just gotten the Grammee scanner and wanted to actually get some clinical experience with it. And so what I did is I had Daniel go ahead and put on multi units, and then we're going to go ahead and do the Grammee workflow. So you can do this in either order. You can do your photogrammetry first and then your intraoral scan. We chose to do the intraoral scan first. So when you purchase the Grammee scanner, these are the scan bodies that come with it that, they've been extensively tested. I get a lot of questions of people asking if you can use this scan body and that. If it's one that's already in the software, then yes, you can. But frankly, I really recommend using these just to keep it simple because this, again, has been extensively tested. It's the one we designed to work with it. And so this will be your most seamless workflow, and it's going to work on any Nobel compatible multi-unit abutment. And so these, again, are supplied with the Grammee scanner, and you're going to place these onto your implants. There was 6 of them included. I think now they may include 8 when you purchase this, but let's say if you had 10 implants, if you just put on 6 scan bodies, you're going to have enough data to stitch your photogrammetry data to. You don't have to necessarily have a scan body on every single one of them, because again, we're going to actually discard the scan bodies in this, and those are going to be replaced with the ones from the photogrammetry scan. So here he is doing the intraoral scan, and I had brought over my Shining 3D aoral scan. This was the wired version, so I think this is version 2. Since then, I've gotten the aoral scan 3 wireless, which is awesome, and really been pleased with that. It's faster, it has a lot more features to it, and then again, the fact that it's wireless is really a great feature. So we chose to do intraoral scanning here because since he did an atraumatic uncovery, there wasn't a lot of blood and everything. But I will say, if you're going to do this, let's say at the time of surgery and you've got a big bloody field and everything, I honestly think it's a lot easier to simply snap an alginate with these things on and then quickly pour that up and then intraoral scan that. That way you're just not wrestling all that blood. It doesn't take nearly as long. Your assistant can have that poured and it's ready to scan by the time that you have done your photogrammetry scan. And if you are in a hurry, you can actually use a material called Mach 2. It's made by Parkel. It's like a very low viscosity PVS that allows you to just pour your model up right then and there, and within 2 minutes, you're ready to go. I know Danny Doming uses that extensively on all these cases, and he always takes an alginate as opposed to trying to intraoral scan in a big bloody field. So we were able to do the intraoral scan, so we've got that with the MMUSB scan bodies, and now it's time for the photogrammetry scan. So you would now swap out and put on the photogrammetry scan body. Now this is a made-up picture. I've just superimposed these onto these implants because I didn't take a picture of that. But what I'm wanting you to notice is that this distal post is partially hidden by the anteriors. This one was too, to a degree, but not as much. And the reason I'm pointing that out is you're going to see we tried to scan all 6 of these at the same time, and we kind of struggled with it because she had very limited opening and we couldn't retract enough. By the time we retracted enough to pick this one up, her lip was up over these because of the limited opening. And it just had a lot of trouble picking up that very last one. The first 5, it picked up almost immediately. So let's go ahead and watch the clinical use of the Grammee scanner. All right, so you can see I've indicated 6 posts in the software, and we've got all 6 of them on, and you're going to see almost immediately it picks up 4 of them. All right, and then it's going to need to get that. You see already we've got 4, there's 5, and then we struggled for about 2 minutes trying to pick up that last one because again, if you if you look in the viewfinder here, you're going to notice that the view is just obstructed once he turns the thing toward me. So notice right here, we're trying to see this very distal most one on her left, and you just can't get a great view of it. The scanner's having trouble picking that up, and we just had to do a lot of retraction and repositioning and stuff until we could finally pick that up. All right, so I'll just let this play for a second and you can watch as we're struggling to capture this, and then I'm going to tell you how we would remedy that situation.
Can you open just a little? Can I let go of this one on the side?
Except for that back one, you see how it's hidden behind this one. That's why I think it's got to come from this angle and really be able to see all of that.
Can you open just a hair? There you go. And turn your
So
head
we
just
probably
straight
would have
forward.
had a little more success if we were using legitimate retractors or like an Optrogate or something, but you can see the lip is covering up the anteriors, and so there's just not enough data to reference to the other ones, even when it can see that clearly.
Maybe.
And now finally we've got it.
See, that was
So it wasn't terrible, but it did take a lot longer than should be typical. What's normal is to pick them up all within about 20 to 30 seconds. You saw we picked up the first 5 almost immediately. That's how we would like this to go. So if you do run into that, and this can be worsened for sure, further distal implants in second molar positions, most certainly pterygoids. And whenever you've got lots of implants in the case, let's say you had 8 implants, I mean, it's inevitable you're going to obscure some of those posts with the ones in front of them. So if you know you're going to run into that, or if you do take a scan and you just find that you're having difficulty getting one of them, it's better to just break that into 2 scans. And so what I would do for such a case as this, I would place the photogrammetry scan bodies on the anterior 2 most, which are always going to be the easiest to see, and then the distal 2 most. Now that's given that this is a 6 implant case, but you could extrapolate that to whatever number of implants. So we've got the distal most implants, and we've left out the middle ones. And because of that, you can see it's going to have a much easier time picking these up. And so when you go in the software, what you would do is instead of telling it you're capturing all 6 posts, tell it that you want to capture 4 posts, all right? And then do your scan. It should happen very quickly and easily. You'll capture that and it'll process for a second and it will be finished, okay? Now come back to the mouth. Take the scan bodies off of those 2 distal most implants and move them up to the middle ones, which weren't included the first time. Okay, and it is very important when you do this, you can't go swapping everything. You want to make sure a couple of them are maintaining their position completely unchanged, because that's the reference data for bringing in these new ones. All right, so we've just moved the back ones anteriorly. And now you would go back into the software, and the button is grayed out right now, but if you were actually in the software and you had just captured a scan, you could tell the software to add posts. When you do that, it's going to ask the number of posts and then let you do another scan. And so now you just repeat the scan exactly like we did the first one, only now we've picked up those 2 implants that weren't included initially. So once you do that second scan, it is going to build all that data together, and your final data set is going to have all 6 implant positions. All right, so you would then go to export meshes, and if you're using the Blue Sky included scan body, then you're going to want to say export the BSB scan body aligner for photogrammetry. I think that's the name. I'd have to double check to be sure. I'm going off memory. but the BSB scan body aligner. So let's jump into exocad and now show you how that data would be used. Again, we've got upper and lower intraoral scans, and then we've got a photogrammetry scan. We expect the intraoral scan to be a little bit off, just due to the inherent inaccuracy of intraoral scanning, especially on edentulous ridges, and we are going to correct that data set with the photogrammetry data. All right, so we've got 6 implants that I've indicated, just so you can see my prescription. On the implant sites, I've indicated anatomic crown, screw retained, and it's going to be a scan body scan. All right, and then these are just anatomic ponics. And now we're ready to launch into the CAD. Okay, so the first thing it wants is your lower jaw scan, and that would be the intraoral scan. Okay, now it's going to want the scan bodies from the photogrammetry data. Okay, so I need to navigate to that. And here you see them, BSB scan body aligner. And now we need the antagonist, which is going to be your upper intraoral scan. All right, so we can set our orientation, click next. We won't use the smile creator right now. So now it's at the point where it wants to indicate implant positions, but what you're always going to have is you're going to have a discrepancy in the positioning between these. So before we can proceed with this, we've got to go into expert mode, and I'm going to hide the antagonist, and what we need to do is bring this to the intraoral scan. All right, so to do that, you're going to go to Tools, Align Meshes, and we just need to pick 3 common points. And actually, you know what? I made a mistake here, and this is probably a good thing for you to see, because when I chose my scan marker scan, I accidentally did the ones for intraoral scanning. Notice that these have the flats on them. Okay, the photogrammetry scanner is not talking to the intraoral scanner, and since it's a multi-unit abutment and there's no control of timing, it doesn't know where to put those flats. And so I'm curious to see how well this works. But the fact that those flats are going to be different is probably going to screw this up, and you're not going to get a great match. So let's do the alignment. Yeah, and that's not great. And the reason is because it's trying to align all those flats. Now, you could go in here and exclude the flats, but I think the better option is let's just replace our scan body scan with the ones that I should have used to start with, which are the ones without the flats. And you'll see why that's important. So I'm going to add and remove a mesh, and this is the scan markers, and we do want to replace that. So I believe this is the one that we actually want. All right, so you see the difference here. This one does not have the flats included, and that's important because that way those flats are not going to artificially influence the matching of this data, and it's not going to get lost trying to match up data that simply doesn't match. Okay, so very important when you're doing this process that you export the scan body aligner that does not have the flats. Okay, very important. So I'm going to get this in the proximity here, and now we're going to align meshes, and we'll do the exact same thing. Perform the alignment, and now best fit match, and that's a better stitch. Okay, now it's not going to be dead on perfect, right? Why? Because remember, we expect to have discrepancies with the intraoral scan, but you are looking for a close overall match, If you've got some blue throughout, at least a little bit of blue on all of those scan bodies, then you can be pretty confident that you've got a good match there. Okay, so now we'll accept that, and you can really appreciate now how the flats didn't influence that. But imagine if we had just proceeded with the intraoral scan data. You know, that's a discrepancy of maybe 0.2 of a millimeter, but that's a mile when we're talking about implantology. If you did that off the intraoral scan, there's no way you're going to have a passive restoration. All right, so now we can go back to the wizard and we can simply proceed through our normal workflow. So choose whatever method you want. Um, we could do uh, the MMUSB scan body for photogrammetry. That's the green one here, right? The one for optical scanning would have the flats. Okay, and the reason for the flats is it just helps during intraoral scanning to have different flats so the scanner doesn't jump back to a previous one and try to rewrite that data. So we're going to choose the photogrammetry, and then you could choose how you want to do this. Do you want to do it with the titanium coping? Do you want to do it directly to the multi-unit? We'll choose to do directly to the multi-unit. And so now, remember, we're just going off of this green data. So I'll click here, best fit match. You can see it is a dead-on stitch. There's absolutely no discrepancy because the file in the library is exactly the same down to every triangle as what's in the library for exocad. All right, and we're going to proceed now through all 6 implants. All right, so now we've indicated all of our implant positions, and then you would do your emergence profile. And now you would be at the point where you can go ahead and begin doing your teeth. Now you could do it from the ground up like this and just go through and position your teeth and all that kind of stuff. Normally what I do in this, and it's not a right or wrong thing, it's just how I choose to do it, is normally I will just do this as a wax up, a ponic wax up initially, and then re-import that and build in my screw channels. I don't typically do it this way. I would normally at this point import a wax up that I've already designed. But it's up to you. I'm not going to show the whole process, but now we would simply set teeth, build in the screw channels, and then you would have your direct to multi-unit restoration that you could print, and that could be your prototype. And so that in fact is what we did. This was my original wax up that I did. This was not accounting for any screw channels or anything like that. I just did an initial wax up, and then I came back and opened a second case and built in the screw channels by identifying the implants. Okay, I've shown all of that in previous videos if you want to reference back to those. And so this was the final hybrid that we did. This was again for a prototype because we wanted to test it. She had a challenging bite in that every time she bit down it was different. So we really had to spend some time. I think it was a month or so of going through prototypes until we really nailed down the position where she consistently landed at. And so this is just a direct to multi hybrid. This was printed in Rodin Sculpture 2.0, and went through a couple of these, made some tweaks, and then when we finally were happy with everything, we went to her finals. And I'm going to discuss how we made her finals in a separate video, but you can see I've got a metal framework here, and then this is actually a printed superstructure, and that was at final delivery. And so now we've got a happy patient. And this lower restoration is essentially the same thing that she's got on top with the Smart One composite hybrid by Burbank. The difference being the one that I did here, I was able to make all in-house with a metal printed framework, picked up tie bases in it, and then I've got a printed superstructure as opposed to milled composite. And so honestly, I've only got maybe $300, $350 in this entire restoration as far as lab cost, and it's something I was able to do all on my own. But obviously you have to know how to do that and do the exocad and the printing and all that. But anyway, that's the case. I just really wanted to show you how I was able to capture the photogrammetry data, and then how you would approach it if you do run into the situation where the scanner is struggling to pick up individual scan bodies. Again, just break that into 2 scans, move a couple of the posts, and then repeat the scan, and that's going to end up at the same place, but hopefully without you struggling to capture those. All right, that's it. I hope that helped.